The courtroom was silent except for the sound of my racing heart. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands trembling in my lap as I stared at the judge's imposing bench. Everything I had worked for, everything I loved, was about to be taken away. My husband's attorney, a sharp-dressed woman with cold eyes, had just finished painting me as an unstable mother who neglected her child and spent money recklessly. None of it was true, but I had no lawyer. I couldn't afford one after losing my job 3 months ago. "Mrs. Patterson," Judge Henderson said, peering over his glasses at me. "Do you have legal representation, or will you be representing yourself today?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Across the room, my husband Gerald sat smugly next to his lawyer, his hand resting protectively on the shoulder of his pregnant mistress, Vanessa. They looked like the perfect couple preparing for their future while I sat alone, drowning in shame and heartbreak. "Your Honor," Gerald's lawyer began, standing with theatrical flair. "As you can see, Mrs. Patterson is unprepared for these proceedings. This demonstrates the very instability we've been describing. We're asking for full custody of the minor child, Caleb Patterson, along with the marital home, and I'm my mom's lawyer." Every head in the courtroom turned toward the back. My 7-year-old son Caleb stood in the gallery, his small frame barely reaching the railing, his Sunday best suit slightly too big for him. His brown eyes were fierce with determination, his jaw set in a way that reminded me of my own father. "Caleb, sit down," Gerald hissed, half rising from his seat. "No." Caleb's voice rang clear through the courtroom. He clutched a tablet to his chest like it held all the secrets of the universe. "I have evidence. I have proof. My dad is lying." Judge Henderson held up his hand for silence. "Young man, this is highly irregular." "I know, sir." "Your Honor, sir." Caleb's voice wavered but didn't break. "But my mom doesn't have a lawyer because my dad got her fired from her job. He told lies about her to her boss. I heard him on the phone. I recorded it." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Gerald's face turned red, then white. His lawyer grabbed his arm, whispering urgently in his ear. Judge Henderson banged his gavel. "Order. Order in this court." He looked at Caleb with something between annoyance and curiosity. "Son, you can't be your mother's lawyer. You're a child." "I know that, Your Honor," Caleb said, walking down the aisle with careful steps. A bailiff moved to intercept him, but the judge waved him off. "But I can be a witness. I can show you what I found. My mom taught me to always tell the truth, so that's what I'm doing." My throat closed with emotion. I wanted to grab my son and shield him from all of this ugliness, but I also felt a surge of pride so strong it brought tears to my eyes. When had my baby become so brave? "Approach the bench," Judge Henderson said with a sigh. Caleb walked forward, and I stood on shaky legs to join him. Gerald's lawyer objected loudly, but the judge silenced her with a look. Up close, I could see Caleb's hands were shaking as badly as mine, but his face remained set with determination. "What's on that tablet, son?" the judge asked gently. "Everything," Caleb whispered, then louder. "Everything that shows my dad is lying." "Can I show you, please? My mom is a good mom. She never hurt me. She never neglects me. She lost her job because my dad wanted her to, so she couldn't fight him in court. He told me so. He said mom would have nothing and have to do what he says." The judge's expression hardened. He looked at me, then at Gerald, then back at Caleb. "This is your son?" he asked Gerald. Gerald stood, smoothing his expensive suit. "Your Honor, the boy has been coached. His mother has clearly been filling his head with—" "I asked if this is your son," Judge Henderson interrupted. "Yes, but—" "Then I'm going to hear what he has to say." The judge motioned to the bailiff. "Let's see what's on that tablet." What happened next changed everything. The tablet contained 3 months of evidence that my 7-year-old son had been collecting like a detective. Voice recordings of Gerald on the phone with Vanessa, laughing about how I'd be left with nothing. Videos of him coaching Caleb to lie about me to school counselors. Photos of bank statements showing Gerald had been transferring money to hidden accounts for over a year. Text messages between Gerald and my former boss, arranging to have me fired over fabricated complaints. My son had been watching and listening and documenting everything because he knew something was wrong. Because he saw his mother crying and his father smiling, and he understood, even at 7 years old, that this wasn't how love was supposed to look. As the judge reviewed the evidence, his face grew darker. Gerald's lawyer frantically whispered to him, shuffling papers, trying to mount some defense. But there was no defense against the truth delivered by the innocent voice of a child. "Mr. Patterson," Judge Henderson finally said, his voice like ice, "I'm going to grant a continuance in these proceedings. I'm also going to be referring some of this material to the appropriate authorities. I suggest you get yourself a criminal defense attorney because what I'm seeing here goes beyond divorce proceedings." Gerald's face crumbled. Vanessa looked confused and angry beside him. And I felt my son's small hand slip into mine, squeezing tight. "Mom," he whispered. "Did I do good?" I pulled him close, breathing in the smell of his hair, feeling his heart beat against mine. "You did perfect, baby. You did perfect." But I didn't know then that this was just the beginning. 1 week earlier, I had been a different person. I had been someone who still believed in saving her marriage, who thought love could overcome betrayal, who didn't yet understand the depths of Gerald's deception. It started like most endings do, with something small. I was folding laundry in our bedroom, sorting through Gerald's shirts, when a receipt fell from his pocket. Dinner at Romano's, our anniversary restaurant. The date was from last Tuesday when he'd said he was working late. The receipt showed 2 entrees, 2 glasses of expensive wine, and a chocolate dessert we'd shared on our first date. My hands stilled on the soft cotton. My mind supplied reasonable explanations. A business dinner, a colleague's celebration, a mistake in the date. But my heart knew. Deep in that place where women hold their intuitions, I knew. I sat on the bed, the receipt trembling in my fingers, and I let myself remember all the signs I'd been ignoring. The late nights that had multiplied over the past year. The new cologne. The way he no longer reached for me in bed. The phone calls he took in another room. The business trips that seemed to happen every other week. "Mom?" Caleb appeared in the doorway, his backpack dragging behind him. "Can I have a snack?" I quickly wiped my eyes and forced a smile. "Of course, baby. Let me make you something." In the kitchen, I made Caleb his favorite peanut butter and banana sandwich, watching him swing his legs at the table as he told me about his day at school. He'd gotten a gold star for his math test. His friend Timothy had brought in a lizard for show and tell. Mrs. Roberts said he was the best reader in class. "Is Dad coming to my soccer game Saturday?" Caleb asked around a mouthful of sandwich. "He said he would," I answered, knowing even as I spoke that Gerald would find an excuse. He always did lately. "He didn't come to the last 3 games," Caleb said quietly. "Is it because of the lady?" My blood ran cold. "What lady, sweetheart?" Caleb looked down at his plate. "The lady with the yellow hair who Dad brings to his office sometimes. I saw her when you picked me up early last month. They were holding hands in the parking lot." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did Dad see you?" "No. I didn't tell him. I thought maybe she was just a friend, but friends don't hold hands like that, do they, Mom? Not grown-up friends." I wanted to lie to him to protect his innocence, but I'd always taught Caleb that honesty mattered most. "No, baby. They don't." That evening, after putting Caleb to bed, I confronted Gerald. He came home at 9, smelling of unfamiliar perfume, his tie loosened. I was waiting in the living room with the receipt on the coffee table. "We need to talk," I said. He saw the receipt and his face went blank. Not guilty, not sorry, just blank. Like a mask dropping. "Naomi." "Don't," I held up my hand. "Don't insult me with lies." "Who is she?" He sighed and sat down across from me, not next to me like a husband should. The distance between us felt like an ocean. "Her name is Vanessa. I didn't mean for it to happen." "How long? Does it matter?" "How long, Gerald?" 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 years. 2 years of lying, of cheating, of pretending we were a family while he built another life. "And you were at Romano's with her?" "Yes." "Our restaurant." "It's just a restaurant, Naomi. It's our place." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "It's where you proposed to me. It's where we celebrated every anniversary." "That's just sentimentality," he said coldly. "People change. Feelings change." I stared at this stranger wearing my husband's face. "Do you love her?" "Yes." At least he didn't lie about that. "What about Caleb? What about our son?" "He'll adjust. Kids are resilient." Gerald stood, straightening his tie. "I want a divorce, Naomi. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from her soon. You can't just." "I can, and I am. Vanessa is pregnant. We're starting a family." The cruelty of those words stole my breath. Starting a family. As if Caleb and I were just a practice run, a rough draft he was ready to throw away for the final version. "Get out," I whispered. "This is my house too. Get out." I screamed, and somewhere upstairs I heard Caleb's door open. I lowered my voice to a harsh whisper. "Get out before our son sees me lose my mind." Gerald grabbed his keys and left without another word. I stood in our living room, surrounded by photos of our life together, and felt everything crumble. 8 years of marriage, 10 years together, gone in a conversation that lasted less than 10 minutes. Caleb came down the stairs in his pajamas. "Mom?" I opened my arms and he ran into them. I held him tight, breathing in his little boy's smell, feeling his tears soak into my shoulder. "It's going to be okay, baby. I promise." But I didn't know how I could keep that promise. The next morning, I went to work at the marketing firm where I'd been a senior account manager for 5 years. My boss, Mr. Thompson, called me into his office before I'd even reached my desk. "Naomi, we need to talk about your performance." I stared at him in confusion. My performance? I just closed the Henderson account last week. The client specifically requested me for their next campaign. That's not what I've been hearing. He slid a folder across his desk. Multiple complaints about missed deadlines, unprofessional behavior, conflicts with team members. I opened the folder and saw complaint after complaint, all dated within the last month, all completely fabricated. This isn't true. None of this happened. Are you calling these people liars? I'm saying there's been a mistake. These projects were all completed on time. You can check the records. I have checked the records. The timestamps have been altered. My mind raced. Who would do this? Who would sabotage me so thoroughly? Then I remembered Gerald's connections at my company. His college friend worked in IT. His former colleague was in HR. "This is because of my husband," I said slowly. "We're getting divorced and he's trying to ruin me." Mr. Thompson's expression turned pitying. "Naomi, I think you need to take some time off. You're clearly under stress. We're going to have to let you go, effective immediately. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a contract. You violated your contract through poor performance. Security will escort you out." I wanted to fight, to argue, to demand justice. But I could see it was useless. Gerald had planned this carefully, poisoning my workplace against me weeks before he'd even asked for a divorce. He'd been building his case, making sure I'd have no resources to fight him. I cleaned out my desk in a daze, ignoring the curious stares of my colleagues. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, trying not to scream. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Vanessa. Gerald told me about your conversation. I just want you to know I never meant to hurt anyone. But Gerald and I are in love. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Think of Caleb." I deleted the message without responding. She wanted to talk about thinking of Caleb? She was having a baby with a married man and wanted to lecture me about my son? That afternoon, Gerald's lawyer served me divorce papers at my house. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a sharper voice. She handed me the papers with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Patterson, my client is requesting full custody of the minor child, the marital home, and the majority of marital assets. Given your recent job loss and unstable emotional state, we believe this is in everyone's best interest." "I'm not unstable. Your client is a cheater and a liar. He's a successful businessman providing for his family. You're an unemployed woman with no prospects. The court will see things clearly." She left me standing in my doorway, holding papers that would end my marriage and possibly take my son from me. That night, Caleb found me crying at the kitchen table. He didn't say anything, just climbed into my lap like he used to when he was smaller. We sat there together in the quiet house, both of us broken, both of us scared. "Mom," he finally said, "I'm going to help you." "Baby, you can't. This is grown-up stuff." "I can help," he insisted. "I'm smart. I pay attention. I know things." I kissed the top of his head. "I know you do, sweetheart." But I didn't take him seriously. He was just a child trying to comfort his mother. I had no idea that my 7-year-old son was about to become my greatest ally in the fight of my life. Caleb took his new mission seriously. The morning after I told him about the divorce, I found him at the kitchen table with a notebook and his tablet, writing in careful, practiced letters. "What are you working on, baby?" I asked, pouring coffee with shaking hands. I hadn't slept. The house felt too empty without Gerald, even though I hated him. 10 years of sleeping next to someone doesn't disappear overnight. "Evidence," Caleb said matter-of-factly. "That's what they call it on TV. When someone does something bad, you need evidence to prove it." I sat down across from him, seeing my old notebook from college filled with his childish handwriting. "What kind of evidence?" "Everything Dad did wrong. See?" He turned the notebook toward me. Listed in careful columns were dates, times, and observations. Dad came home late smelling like flowers, February 12th. Dad lied about business trip, saw him at mall with yellow hair lady, March 3rd. Dad yelled at Mom for nothing, lots of times. My throat tightened. Caleb, sweetheart, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Dad's lawyer lady said mean things about you. She said you're unstable and can't take care of me. But that's a lie, Mom. You take care of me perfect. You make my lunch every day with notes in it. You help me with homework. You come to all my games even when you're tired from work. Well, when you had work. That last part was said with such adult concern that I nearly broke down. I'll get another job, baby. Don't worry about that. I'm not worried. I know you will. But Dad's trying to make everyone think you're bad, and that's not fair. So I'm going to show everyone the truth. For the next week, Caleb became a tiny detective. He carried his tablet everywhere, and I gradually realized he was recording things. When Gerald came to pick him up for his court-ordered visitation, Caleb kept his tablet in his jacket pocket, recording enabled. Hey buddy, Gerald said with forced enthusiasm, ruffling Caleb's hair. Ready for some father-son time? I guess, Caleb said flatly. In the car, Gerald tried to make conversation. So, what's your mom been saying about me? Nothing much, Caleb lied smoothly. She mostly just cries in her room. I heard this later when Caleb played me the recording. Gerald's response made my blood boil. Well, she brought this on herself. If she'd been a better wife, I wouldn't have needed to find someone else. What does that mean? Caleb asked innocently. It means grown-up stuff you wouldn't understand. Listen, Caleb, I need you to tell me if your mom says bad things about me. Can you do that? Why? Because I need to know if she's being a good mom. If she's not, you might need to come live with me and Vanessa full-time. Would you like that? Vanessa's really nice. And you'll have a baby brother or sister soon. I don't want to live with you, Caleb said quietly. You don't mean that. Your mom's just confused you. Hey, how about we go get ice cream and talk about this more? The recording continued with Gerald trying to coach Caleb on what to tell the court-appointed counselor. Just say your mom seems sad all the time and doesn't pay attention to you. Say you feel safer at my place. Can you remember that? I guess, Caleb said, but I could hear in his voice he had no intention of doing it. At school things got worse. The court-appointed counselor, Mrs. Brighton, called me in for a meeting. She was a thin woman with tired eyes who looked like she'd heard every sad story in the world and believed none of them. Mrs. Patterson, I've been meeting with Caleb and I have some concerns. My hands gripped my purse. What concerns? He seems very anxious. He mentions that you cry frequently. He's worried about money. These aren't things a 7-year-old should be burdened with. I'm going through a divorce. Of course I've cried. But I never burdened Caleb with adult problems. He also mentioned you lost your job. I was fired unjustly because my husband sabotaged me. Mrs. Brighton made a note and I could see she didn't believe me. Mrs. Patterson, I understand divorce is difficult, but making accusations against your husband won't help your case. They're not accusations. They're facts. From my meetings with Mr. Patterson, he seems very concerned about Caleb's welfare. He has a stable job, a supportive partner, and a calm home environment to offer. His supportive partner is the woman he cheated on me with. Affairs happen, Mrs. Patterson. What matters now is what's best for Caleb. I left that meeting knowing the counselor had already decided against me. Gerald had gotten to her first, painted himself as the stable parent and me as the hysterical ex-wife. Everything was falling apart. That evening, Caleb showed me something on his tablet that changed everything. Mom, remember when Dad picked me up last week and I had to wait in his office? Yes, baby. I saw his computer was open. He was in the bathroom. So I took pictures. Caleb scrolled through image after image of bank statements, emails, and documents. I don't understand all of it, but I thought maybe you would. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Bank accounts I'd never heard of. Transfers of money from our joint account into accounts in only Gerald's name. Emails between Gerald and his lawyer dating back 6 months, planning the divorce strategy, discussing how to minimize assets, and discredit me. One email made my stomach turn. Make sure she can't work. Contact her employer, plant the seeds. By the time I file, she'll be unemployed and look unstable. Easy custody win. Caleb, you're a genius, I whispered. Is it good evidence? It's perfect evidence, baby. This proves Dad planned everything. He got me fired on purpose. He's been hiding money. He's been lying to the court. But my relief was short-lived. How could I use this evidence? I had no lawyer and no money to hire one. Gerald had made sure of that. The consultation fees I'd checked were all thousands of dollars, just for someone to take my case. I had exactly $247 in my checking account and a credit card that was maxed out. I applied for jobs every day, but something was wrong. I never even got rejection emails. It was like my applications disappeared into a void. Finally, a recruiter I knew from college called me. Naomi, I wanted to give you a heads up. You're being blacklisted. What? How? I don't know the details, but when your name comes up in our system, there's a flag. Something about legal issues and unreliability. Who did you piss off? I closed my eyes. My husband. Damn girl. That's cold. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. If I put you forward for anything, it'll reflect badly on me. Gerald had made sure I couldn't work anywhere. Not just at my old company, but anywhere in the industry. He'd poisoned every well. That night, I had $23 in cash and a nearly empty fridge. I'd been rationing our groceries, trying to make everything last. Caleb's school had called about unpaid lunch money. The mortgage was due in a week and I had nothing to pay it with. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the divorce papers, at Gerald's demands for full custody and everything we owned. His lawyer had scheduled the court date for 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to find a lawyer I couldn't afford, to fight a case I was set up to lose. Caleb came downstairs in his pajamas. Mom? Why are you still up? Just thinking, baby. Go back to bed. Instead, he climbed into my lap even though he was getting too big for that. Are we going to be okay? I held him tight, breathing in his little boy smell. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. I promise. I believe you, Mom. And don't worry. I have a plan. What kind of plan? He looked up at me with serious brown eyes. I'm going to tell the judge the truth. All of it. I'm going to show him my evidence. Judges have to listen to kids, right? That's what my teacher says. We have rights. Baby, it's not that simple. Why not? If I tell the truth and show proof, the judge has to believe me. That's how it works. I wanted to explain about lawyers and procedures and how the system favors people with money and power. But looking at his determined face, I didn't have the heart. Okay, Caleb. We'll try it your way. I didn't believe for a second it would work. But I also didn't have any other options. 3 days before the court date, Vanessa showed up at my door. She was visibly pregnant now, her hand resting on her belly in that unconscious way pregnant women do. She looked younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with blonde hair and nervous blue eyes. Can I come in? She asked. I think we should talk. Absolutely not. Please, Naomi. I just want to explain. Explain what? How you knew he was married and didn't care. How you're having his baby while he's trying to take my son. Get off my porch. I didn't know he was married at first. Gerald told me he was divorced. By the time I found out the truth, I was already in love with him. And that makes it okay? Tears filled her eyes. No. But I'm trying to do the right thing now. Gerald told me things about you, but I've been watching you with Caleb at school pickup. You're a good mom. Better than he said. I don't need your validation. I'm not trying to take Caleb from you. I told Gerald that. But he won't listen. He's obsessed with winning. With proving he's right. I think there's something wrong with him, Naomi. Something I didn't see before. Welcome to the club. Now leave. She stood there for another moment, tears streaming down her face, then walked away. I watched her go, feeling nothing. She wanted absolution I couldn't give. She wanted to be seen as a victim too, when she'd made her choices with open eyes. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of everything pressing down. 3 days until court. 3 days until I potentially lost my son. Caleb appeared at the top of the stairs. Was that the lady? Yes. I don't like her. Me neither, baby. Don't worry, Mom. I have everything ready. My evidence is organized. I practiced what I'm going to say. We're going to win. I climbed the stairs and hugged him tight. I love you so much. I love you too. And Mom? I'm going to take care of you now. That's what families do. He was 7 years old and trying to take care of me. The thought broke my heart and filled it with pride at the same time. Whatever happened in that courtroom, I had the best son in the world. I just prayed it would be enough. The morning of the court date, I dressed in my best suit, pressed and cleaned. I'd worn it for my last successful client presentation, back when I still had a job and a life that made sense. I did my makeup carefully, trying to hide the dark circles under my eyes from weeks of poor sleep. I needed to look put together, stable, like a good mother even though I felt like I was drowning. Caleb put on his Sunday suit without being asked. He'd polished his shoes himself and combed his hair neatly. He'd printed out documents from his tablet, organizing them into a folder with colored tabs he'd made from construction paper. Mom, are you scared? He asked as we drove to the courthouse. Yes, baby. But I'm also proud of you. No matter what happens today, you're the bravest person I know. I'm scared too, he admitted. But Ms. Rodriguez says being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared. Ms. Rodriguez was his second-grade teacher, a kind woman who'd noticed Caleb's anxiety over the past weeks. She'd sent home a note saying she'd be happy to serve as a character witness if needed. It was a small kindness in a world that had been mostly cruel lately. We arrived at the courthouse early. Gerald was already there with his lawyer and Vanessa. They looked like a perfect family unit. Gerald in an expensive suit, Vanessa in a modest maternity dress, both of them projecting success and stability. Next to them, with my second-hand suit and battered car, I looked exactly like what they wanted the court to see, a woman falling apart. Gerald's lawyer, Ms. Hartwick, approached me with a condescending smile. Mrs. Patterson, my client is willing to be generous. If you agree to our terms today, supervised visitation every other weekend, surrender of all marital assets except your personal items, and no request for alimony, we can settle this quickly. No, I said firmly even though my voice shook. Think about what's best for Caleb. A custody battle will be traumatic for him. Why put him through that? Because what's best for Caleb is being with his mother. The mother who's actually been there for him every day of his life. The mother who just lost her job and can't provide stability? The mother who lost her job because your client sabotaged her career deliberately. Ms. Hartwick's smile turned sharp. That's a serious accusation with no proof. Be careful about slander, Mrs. Patterson. Then we were in the courtroom and I was sitting alone at my table while Gerald sat smugly with his legal team. This was exactly what he'd planned. Me defenseless, him looking like the reasonable party. The judge would see a successful man wanting to provide for his son and an unemployed, bitter ex-wife making accusations. That's when Caleb stood up and changed everything. After the judge reviewed the evidence on Caleb's tablet, he'd granted a continuance. But more than that, he'd called an older attorney who'd been observing the proceedings into his chambers. Attorney Franklin Cole had been sitting in the back of the courtroom, white-haired and distinguished, watching with sharp eyes. Now, a week after that first court date, Mr. Cole sat in my living room, reviewing the evidence Caleb had collected. This is remarkable, he said, scrolling through the tablet. Your son has basically built most of a case for us. These recordings show clear attempts at parental alienation. These bank statements prove hidden assets. These emails demonstrate premeditated fraud. Us. I asked carefully. Mr. Cole, I appreciate you coming here, but I can't afford an attorney. I can barely afford groceries right now. He looked up at me over his reading glasses. Mrs. Patterson, Naomi, I've been practicing family law for 40 years. I've seen every dirty trick in the book. But what your husband did, getting you fired deliberately, poisoning your career, all while pretending to love you. That's a special kind of cruel. And that little boy of yours standing up in court? That reminded me why I became a lawyer in the first place. I don't understand. I'm taking your case pro bono. No fee. I have enough money. What I don't have enough of is time left to make a difference. So let me make a difference here. Tears filled my eyes. Why would you do this for us? Because I was in that courtroom for a different case and I saw how Hartwick was setting you up for slaughter. And I saw your son's courage. Sometimes the universe puts you in the right place at the right time. Now let's get to work. Over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Cole worked harder than I'd ever seen anyone work. He was 73 years old but had the energy of someone half his age. He brought in a forensic accountant who traced every dollar Gerald had hidden. He hired a private investigator who documented Gerald's lies to his employer about overtime hours he was actually spending with Vanessa. Your husband has been preparing for this divorce for over a year, Mr. Cole explained during one of our strategy sessions. He systematically isolated you financially, professionally, and socially. In legal terms, this is called economic abuse. The court takes it very seriously. But Gerald's lawyer is making it sound like I'm the unstable one. That's because Hartwick is good at her job. But we have evidence, and evidence doesn't lie. She can spin all she wants, but the bank records, the emails, the recordings, those speak for themselves. He also found 3 former colleagues of mine who'd been pressured to file false complaints against me. Gerald's college friend in IT, feeling guilty, admitted he'd been asked to alter timestamps on my projects. Everything Gerald had built to destroy me was unraveling. Meanwhile, I was trying to rebuild my life. Mr. Cole connected me with a colleague who ran a small marketing consultancy. They were looking for a contractor and didn't care about industry blacklists. Your portfolio speaks for itself, Rebecca, the owner, told me. I've seen your work. If someone tried to blacklist you, it's because they're threatened by your talent, not because you lack it. The work was part-time and the pay was modest, but it was something. I could buy groceries without counting every dollar. I could put gas in my car without panic. Small victories, but they mattered. Caleb thrived under the attention from Mr. Cole. The lawyer treated him with respect, asking his opinion on strategy, explaining legal concepts in terms a 7-year-old could understand. You know what you did in that courtroom? Mr. Cole told him one afternoon. You practiced something called advocacy. That's when you speak up for someone who can't speak up for themselves. You're a natural at it. Really? Caleb's face lit up. Really? Ever think about being a lawyer when you grow up? Maybe. If I can help people like my mom. I watched them together, this wise old man and my brave little boy, and felt hope for the first time in months. The investigation also revealed things I hadn't known. Gerald had taken out credit cards in my name and maxed them out, planning to stick me with the debt. He told his employer I had mental health issues and might show up at his workplace causing problems, poisoning that potential character reference. He'd even contacted Caleb's school suggesting I might be unstable, laying groundwork to make me look like an unfit mother. He's been building a case against you for over a year, Mr. Cole said grimly. While you thought you had a marriage, he was systematically destroying your life. Why? I asked. If he wanted a divorce, why not just ask for one? Why destroy me? Control. Men like Gerald can't stand the idea of their ex-wives moving on and being happy. He wanted to make sure you'd be so broken you'd never recover. He wanted you dependent on him, grateful for any scraps he threw you. He's going to be disappointed. Yes, he is. During one of Caleb's visits with Gerald, still court-ordered despite everything, my son came back with more recordings. This time he'd captured Gerald and Vanessa arguing. I thought you said this would be easy. Vanessa's voice was shrill on the recording. You said she'd just sign the papers and go away. Now there's an investigation? Gerald, they're looking at your finances. Calm down. It's fine. Hartwick knows what she's doing. You told me she was just some housewife who'd never fight back. You said she was weak. She is weak. This is just her flailing around. Once the judge sees she can't even keep a job. You got her fired. You told me you didn't, but I heard Caleb's recording. You planned all of this. So what if I did? I'm not going to let her take half of everything I've built. She contributed nothing to my success. She's nothing without me. What if the judge doesn't see it that way? He will. Trust me. But Gerald's voice on that recording sounded less confident than his words suggested. He knew things were falling apart. Mr. Cole also tracked down something interesting. Vanessa had been married before, briefly, 5 years ago. Her ex-husband had filed a restraining order after she destroyed his apartment during their breakup. She'd also been fired from 2 jobs for inappropriate relationships with supervisors. I'm not planning to use this unless necessary, Mr. Cole said. But if Hartwick tries to paint Vanessa as some innocent victim, we need to be prepared to counter that narrative. I don't want to attack her, I said. This is about Gerald, not her. That's admirable, Naomi. But if they make her part of their case, if they try to present her as a stable maternal figure for Caleb, then we have to respond. As the new court date approached, Gerald tried one more manipulation. He sent me flowers at my new job with a note. Can we talk? Maybe we can work this out without lawyers. For Caleb's sake. I threw the flowers in the trash. He showed up at my house that evening looking haggard. Naomi, please. Can we just talk? You have a lawyer. Talk through her. I made mistakes, okay? But this doesn't have to destroy both of us. We can co-parent. We can be civil. You tried to take my son from me. You destroyed my career. You called me unstable to anyone who would listen. And now you want civil? I was angry. I wasn't thinking clearly. But Vanessa's pregnant and stressed, and all this legal stuff is making everything worse. Can't we just settle this? I saw through him clearly now. He wasn't remorseful. He was scared. The investigation was revealing all his lies, and he was trying to make it stop. No, Gerald. We're going to court. And everyone is going to see exactly what you did. His face hardened into the cold mask I'd seen the night he asked for the divorce. You're making a mistake. You think this old lawyer of yours can beat Hartwick? She destroys people for fun. Let her try. He left and I locked the door behind him, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. Caleb came downstairs. Was that Dad? Yes, baby. He wanted to talk. Are you getting back together? No, sweetheart. Never. Caleb nodded, looking relieved. Good. He's not nice to you, Mom. You deserve someone nice. Right now, I just need me. And you. That's enough. That's more than enough, he agreed, hugging me tight. The next court date was in 3 days. Mr. Cole had prepared everything meticulously. We had evidence, witnesses, and a solid case. But I knew Hartwick would fight dirty. She tried to paint me as vindictive, as a scorned woman making false accusations. "Let her try," Mr. Cole said confidently. "We have the truth, and the truth is a powerful thing." I hoped he was right, because if we lost this I'd lose Caleb, and that was something I couldn't survive. The second court date arrived with autumn rain washing the courthouse steps. I held Caleb's hand as we climbed those steps, both of us silent with nerves. Mr. Cole walked beside us, carrying 2 thick folders of evidence. Inside, the courtroom was fuller than before. Mr. Cole had subpoenaed witnesses. My former boss, Mr. Thompson, Gerald's IT friend, several colleagues. They sat uncomfortably in the gallery, avoiding my eyes. Vanessa was there too, her pregnancy more visible now, her face pale and anxious. Judge Henderson looked older than I remembered, like the weight of too many broken families had aged him. He studied the papers before him with a frown. "We're here for the continued proceedings in the matter of Patterson versus Patterson," he began. "Before we hear testimony, I want to make something clear. This court's primary concern is the welfare of the minor child. Everything else, assets, alimony, personal grievances, comes second. Is that understood?" Both lawyers nodded. "Good. Mr. Cole, you have new evidence to present." "Yes, Your Honor." "Substantial evidence that demonstrates a pattern of financial abuse, fraud, and deliberate sabotage by the respondent against my client." Hartwick stood immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. These are inflammatory accusations without." "Counsel, sit down. I'll hear the evidence before you object to it." What followed was 3 hours of methodical destruction of Gerald's lies. Mr. Cole presented the bank statements showing hidden accounts. He played recordings of Gerald admitting he'd gotten me fired. He showed emails between Gerald and my former employer planning my termination months before it happened. Mr. Thompson, my former boss, squirmed in the witness stand. "Mr. Thompson, did you receive calls from the respondent, Gerald Patterson, regarding his wife's job performance?" "Yes, but..." "How many calls over what period of time?" "Maybe 15 calls over 3 months. 15 calls from a woman's husband suggesting she was unstable, performing poorly, having mental health crises. And you never thought to verify these claims with Mrs. Patterson herself?" He was convincing. He seemed genuinely worried. Or genuinely manipulative. "Did Mr. Patterson suggest you could be held liable if his unstable wife hurt someone at work and you'd been warned about her mental state?" Mr. Thompson's face flushed. "He may have mentioned liability, yes. So you fired a top-performing employee based solely on her husband's allegations made during divorce proceedings, without any independent verification?" Yes. I see now that was wrong." The IT specialist, Brian, testified next about being asked to alter timestamps on my projects. Gerald said it was just to document the real timelines, that Naomi had been fudging her records. I didn't realize he was setting her up. "But you knew they were getting divorced?" "Yes." "And you knew your actions would make Mrs. Patterson look incompetent?" "I guess I didn't think it through." "No, you didn't." Witness after witness, the story emerged of Gerald's calculated campaign to destroy me. He'd called my few close friends, suggesting I was having a breakdown and they should keep their distance for their own safety. He'd told Caleb's school I might try to take him out of state illegally, putting a flag on Caleb's records. He'd even contacted my elderly parents, telling them I was fine and just needed space, ensuring they wouldn't visit and see how I was struggling. He isolated her completely, Mr. Cole told the judge. Every support system, every professional connection, every resource, he systematically removed them. This isn't a simple case of a marriage ending badly. This is calculated psychological and economic abuse. During lunch recess, I stood in the courthouse hallway trying to process everything. Hearing the extent of Gerald's manipulation laid out in legal language made it somehow more real and more horrible. Vanessa approached me, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he did all that. Don't talk to me. Please, Naomi. I'm so sorry. I thought you were just bitter about the divorce. He told me you were vindictive, that you'd lied to your employer to get sympathy. But hearing all this in court..." She sobbed. "What kind of monster is he? The kind who convinced you to help him destroy a family. Don't act surprised now. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything I know. I'll help you." I looked at her swollen belly, at her tear-stained face, and felt nothing but contempt. "I don't want your help. I don't want anything from you. You made your choices. Now live with them. Mr. Cole appeared beside me. Mrs. Patterson, we should go. Court's resuming. As we walked away, I heard Vanessa crying behind us. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. She was pregnant and realizing the man she'd chosen was a monster. But I couldn't find that sympathy. She'd seen a married man and pursued him anyway. Whatever she was facing now, she'd chosen it. The afternoon session focused on Gerald's finances. The forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chin. Wait, I can't use Chin. Let me revise. The forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Monroe, testified about the money trail. Mr. Patterson opened 6 separate accounts over 14 months, all in his name only. He systematically transferred funds from joint accounts, from his business accounts, even from his son's college fund that had been a gift from Mrs. Patterson's parents. How much total did he hide? Mr. Cole asked. Approximately $347,000. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I felt dizzy. $347,000. I'd been rationing groceries and he'd hidden $250,000. These transfers coincide with his relationship with Miss Vanessa Lawson, Patricia continued. He purchased a condo in her name, paid for her car, established an account for their future child. All while telling the court he needed the marital home and assets because Mrs. Patterson couldn't provide stability. Gerald sat stone-faced, but I could see sweat on his forehead. Hartwick scribbled notes frantically, her confident demeanor cracking. Furthermore, Patricia said, Mr. Patterson established an LLC 6 months ago, transferring his business assets into it to hide them from marital asset division. This is textbook financial fraud in a divorce proceeding. When Gerald finally took the stand, he tried to maintain his composure. But Mr. Cole was relentless. Mr. Patterson, you testified in your initial filing that you were concerned about your wife's ability to provide for your son. Is that correct? Yes. But you're the one who ensured she couldn't provide for him by getting her fired and blacklisting her in your industry? That's an exaggeration of. We have recordings of you admitting this. Would you like to hear them again? Gerald's jaw clenched. I may have made some calls expressing concern about my wife's mental state. 15 calls to her employer. Multiple calls to her colleagues. Emails to her industry contacts. All painting her as unstable. All while you knew she was completely competent and successful. I was worried about her. You were worried she'd be able to support herself and fight your custody grab. Be honest, Mr. Patterson. You wanted your wife destroyed so thoroughly she couldn't challenge you. No. I wanted what was best for my son. Is it best for your son to have his mother unemployed and desperate? To watch her cry because she can't buy groceries? To hear you coaching him to lie about her in therapy sessions? I never. We have recordings, Mr. Patterson. Your son recorded everything. Gerald's eyes found Caleb in the gallery. My son stared back at him steadily, no fear in his face. Gerald's expression twisted with something between rage and disbelief. The testimony continued. Gerald couldn't explain the hidden bank accounts. He couldn't justify the systematic sabotage of my career. He couldn't reconcile his claims of concern for Caleb with his attempts to manipulate the boy into lying. You wanted full custody, Mr. Cole said. Not because you thought it was best for Caleb, but because you couldn't stand the idea of your ex-wife having any power. You wanted to win and you didn't care who you hurt to do it. That's not true, Gerald said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then explain the email to your lawyer where you wrote, and I quote, I want her broken. I want her begging me for scraps. Make it happen. Silence fell over the courtroom. Even Hartwick looked shocked. She hadn't known about that email. Gerald had hidden it even from his own lawyer. Gerald's face went white. I was angry. I didn't mean. You meant every word. You're a man who needs absolute control, and when your wife didn't play her assigned role in your perfect life, you decided to destroy her. Only she didn't break, did she? She fought back. And that 7-year-old boy you tried to manipulate? He saw through you. When Gerald stepped down from the witness stand, he looked diminished. The confident, successful businessman persona had crumbled, revealing the petty, cruel man underneath. Hartwick tried to salvage things with her closing argument. Your Honor, my client made some mistakes in the heat of a painful divorce. But his core concern remains his son's welfare. He has the financial stability, the support system with Miss Lawson, and the calm home environment that Caleb needs. The calm home environment built on fraud and lies? Judge Henderson asked dryly. He has resources, Your Honor. Resources Mrs. Patterson lacks. Resources he deliberately ensured she would lack. Mr. Cole stood for his closing. Your Honor, this case is simple. A man decided to divorce his wife and, rather than doing so fairly, chose to destroy her completely. He sabotaged her career, isolated her socially, hid marital assets, and attempted to manipulate his own son into betraying his mother. The only question before this court is whether we reward this behavior or hold him accountable. Judge Henderson was quiet for a long moment, reviewing his notes. Finally he looked up. I'm going to grant a temporary order while I consider all the evidence. Mrs. Patterson, you will retain primary custody of Caleb pending my final decision. Mr. Patterson, your visitation will be supervised until further notice. I'm also freezing all contested assets until we determine proper distribution. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for my final ruling. It wasn't the victory I'd hoped for, but it was something. Caleb would stay with me. Gerald's plan had failed. As we left the courtroom, Gerald tried to approach us. Naomi, please. Can we talk about this? No. I'm still Caleb's father. He needs me. Caleb looked up at his father with old eyes. No, I don't. You're mean to Mom. You lie. I don't want to see you anymore. Caleb, I love you. No, you don't. You love yourself. That's different. We walked away, leaving Gerald standing in the courthouse hallway. He'd built his house of lies so carefully, and my 7-year-old son had torn it down with simple truth. 2 weeks until the final hearing. 2 weeks to wait for justice. But for the first time in months, I believed we might actually get it. The days after the hearing felt surreal. I kept expecting Gerald to find some new way to sabotage me, some fresh cruelty I hadn't anticipated. But Mr. Cole had gotten an emergency protective order preventing Gerald from contacting my employer, my friends, or anyone in my professional network. He was also required to restore the hidden funds to joint accounts pending the final asset division. Suddenly I had money again. Not a fortune, but enough to buy groceries without panic, to put gas in my car, to pay the mortgage without wondering which bill to skip. The relief was so overwhelming I cried in the bank parking lot after confirming the deposit. My phone rang constantly now. Colleagues I hadn't heard from in months called to apologize. Gerald told me you'd had a breakdown, one said. I feel like such an idiot for believing him. Another, I saw the coverage of your court hearing in the legal newsletter. I'm so sorry I didn't reach out before. The vindication felt good, but it also hurt. These were people I'd considered friends, and they'd abandoned me based on one man's lies. Where had they been when I needed them? But there were others, people I'd never expected, who emerged as genuine allies. Rebecca, my new boss at the consultancy, called me into her office a few days after the hearing. I braced myself, worried she'd seen the publicity and was rethinking hiring me. Naomi, I've been following your case, she said. Not to be nosy, but because I've been where you are. You have. 12 years ago, my ex-husband did something similar. Not as extreme, but the same playbook. Isolate, sabotage, control. It took me 3 years to rebuild my life. So I want you to know that this job isn't temporary. When you're ready, I want to offer you a full-time position as senior partner. You're brilliant at what you do, and I want that brilliance at my company. I couldn't speak through the tears. She handed me tissues and smiled. Plus, my clients love you already. The Henderson campaign you pitched last week? They said it was the best proposal they'd seen in 5 years. You've got talent, Naomi. Don't let what Gerald did make you doubt that. At school, Ms. Rodriguez pulled me aside during pickup. I wanted you to know that several of us teachers have written statements for your case if you need them. We've watched Caleb this year, seen how much he loves you, how secure he is with you. We've also seen the change in him during visits with his father. He comes back anxious and quiet. Children don't lie about feelings, not at this age. Thank you, I managed. That means everything. He's a special boy. What he did in that courtroom. We've been teaching about courage and standing up for what's right. He's our real-life example now. Caleb had become something of a celebrity among the second graders. My friends say I'm brave, he told me one evening. Timothy says when his parents get divorced, he wants to be like me. I hope Tommy's parents don't get divorced, baby. Me too. But if they do, I'll help him. I know how now. Mr. Cole had also introduced me to a support group for people going through difficult divorces. I attended my first meeting reluctantly, not sure I wanted to share my story with strangers. But sitting in that circle of survivors, hearing their experiences, I felt less alone than I had in months. There was Nicole, whose husband had emptied their bank accounts and moved to Mexico. Roberto, whose wife had tried to prove him unfit by calling CPS with false reports of abuse. Amanda, whose ex-husband was using their children as weapons, telling them their mother didn't love them. The system is supposed to protect us, Amanda said bitterly. But it seems designed to reward whoever lies best. That's changing, said the group facilitator, an older woman named Helen. Slowly, but it's changing. Family courts are getting better at recognizing patterns of abuse and manipulation. Cases like Naomi's, where there's clear evidence of deliberate sabotage, they help set precedents. I don't want to be a precedent, I said. I just want my life back. You'll get there, Helen assured me. And you'll be stronger for it. Not because the struggle makes you stronger, that's nonsense. But because you'll know what you're capable of surviving. You'll never doubt yourself the same way again. The group met weekly and I started attending regularly. It helped to talk to people who understood, who didn't judge, who'd been in the trenches of divorce warfare and come out the other side. One evening, Nicole approached me after the meeting. I've been thinking about your case. You said Gerald works in finance, right? Commercial real estate development. I work in banking compliance. If you want, I could look at his business dealings, see if there's anything shady. Sometimes men who lie to their wives also lie to their investors. I don't want to go after his career. I just want him to leave me alone. I get that. But if he's committed fraud in his business dealings, that affects your settlement. Hidden liabilities could impact what you're owed. Just think about it. I did think about it. Part of me wanted to take the high road, to focus on rebuilding rather than revenge. But another part remembered Gerald's email. I want her broken. He'd wanted to destroy me completely. Why should I protect him? Okay, I told Nicole at the next meeting. If you're willing to look, I'd appreciate it. She discovered some interesting things. Gerald's LLC, the one created to hide assets, had several investors who weren't aware the company was new or that Gerald was divorcing. He'd presented it as an established entity. There were also some questionable expense reports, personal purchases charged as business expenses. This is fraud, Nicole said, showing me the documents. Not divorce drama, actual criminal fraud. If his investors knew, they could sue. If the IRS knew, he'd be audited. What should I do with this information? Give it to your lawyer. Let him decide how to use it. Mr. Cole was thrilled with Nicole's findings. This changes everything. If Gerald's committed business fraud, his claims of financial stability are built on sand. The judge needs to know this. Meanwhile, Caleb was thriving. Away from Gerald's manipulative presence, he relaxed. His grades improved. He laughed more. He started sleeping through the night again instead of waking up with nightmares. His supervised visits with Gerald were awkward and tense. The supervisor, a court-appointed social worker named Mrs. Murphy, noted that Gerald spent most of the visits trying to convince Caleb he was the victim. Your mother is lying about me, Gerald told Caleb during one visit. She's making me look bad because she's angry. Mom doesn't lie, Caleb said calmly. You do. I'm your father. You should respect me. You have to earn respect. Ms. Rodriguez taught us that. Mrs. Murphy's reports were damning. The child shows no affection toward his father and appears anxious in his presence. The father makes no genuine effort to connect with the child, instead focusing on defending himself and bad-mouthing the mother. I do not recommend unsupervised visitation at this time. Vanessa called me one evening. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. What do you want? I'm leaving him, she said without preamble. Gerald, I'm leaving him. Good for you. Why are you telling me? Because I was stupid and blind, but I'm not anymore. The things that came out in court, the fraud Nicole found, the way he talks about you, he's not who I thought he was. You're just figuring this out now? I know. I'm an idiot. But Naomi, I'm scared. He's been getting angry, saying if I leave him, I'll regret it. He's saying things about making sure I can't take the baby. I don't know what to do. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of concern. Call a domestic violence hotline. Get a safety plan. Don't tell him you're leaving until you're already gone. Why are you helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping that baby who didn't ask for any of this. Get somewhere safe, Vanessa. Gerald doesn't handle rejection well. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you. I know I don't deserve your kindness. You don't. But your baby does. After I hung up, Caleb asked, was that the lady? Yes. She's leaving your father. Good. She should. He's mean. Yes, baby. He is. 3 days later, Mr. Cole called with interesting news. Vanessa filed for a restraining order against Gerald. She's claiming he threatened her when she tried to leave, that he's been emotionally abusive, and she fears for her safety and the baby's safety. Will it affect our case? It shows a pattern of behavior. The man who sabotaged you, who tried to manipulate his son, is now threatening his pregnant girlfriend. It paints a clear picture of who Gerald really is. The final hearing was a week away. Mr. Cole spent hours preparing me for testimony, making sure I could stay calm under Hartwick's cross-examination. "She's going to try to provoke you," he warned. "She'll imply you're vindictive, that you turned Caleb against his father, that you're exaggerating or lying about the abuse. You need to stay calm and factual." "I can do that." "I know you can. You're stronger than you think, Naomi." The night before the hearing I couldn't sleep. I stood in Caleb's doorway watching him sleep peacefully, his stuffed bear tucked under his arm. He looked so young, so innocent. He should never have had to stand up in a courtroom and defend his mother. He should never have had to record his father's lies. But he had, and he'd done it with remarkable courage. Whatever happened tomorrow, I was proud of us both. We'd fought back. We hadn't let Gerald win. And somehow, someway we'd survive this and come out stronger. The allies I'd found, Rebecca, Mr. Cole, Nicole, Helen, Ms. Rodriguez, even Mrs. Murphy, they'd all shown me that goodness still existed in the world. That not everyone would betray me or believe lies about me. I had a community now. A support system Gerald hadn't been able to destroy. And that made all the difference. The morning of the final hearing felt different from all the previous court dates. There was a strange calm in my chest, a sense that I'd done everything I could. Whatever happened now was out of my hands. Caleb ate his breakfast quietly, his little face serious. "Mom, today's the day we find out if we win, right? Today's the day the judge makes his decision. But baby, we've already won in the ways that matter. We have each other, we know the truth, and we're building a good life. But what if he says I have to live with Dad?" I knelt down to his level, looking him in the eyes. "That's not going to happen. Mr. Cole says the judge has seen all the evidence. He knows you're safe and happy with me. Promise?" I couldn't promise, but I said it anyway. "Promise?" The courthouse was busy that morning. Mr. Cole met us at the entrance, looking confident in his pressed suit. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." "Good. Because today we end this." Inside, the courtroom had even more people than before. Several journalists sat in the back. Apparently, my case had attracted media attention as an example of financial abuse and divorce. Gerald's business partners were there too, summoned by subpoena after Nicole's discovery of the fraud. Gerald sat with Hartwick, looking thinner than I remembered. The confident businessman was gone, replaced by someone who looked cornered and desperate. Vanessa was noticeably absent. Judge Henderson called the court to order. "Before we begin, I want to address the media presence. This is a family court matter involving a minor child. I'm allowing limited coverage because of the broader issues at stake, but the child's privacy will be protected. No photos, no names in publication." "Understood." The journalists nodded. "Good. Let's proceed. Ms. Hartwick, does your client wish to make a statement?" Gerald stood, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I know mistakes were made. I acted out of anger and hurt. But I'm still Caleb's father. I love my son. I'm asking for joint custody and a chance to rebuild my relationship with him." "You had chances," Judge Henderson said flatly. "Multiple chances. You used them to manipulate, lie, and abuse. Sit down, Mr. Patterson." Hartwick tried to salvage things. "Your Honor, my client has acknowledged his errors. He's enrolled in anger management courses and parenting classes. He's committed to doing better. He enrolled 2 days ago, after this hearing was already scheduled. That's not commitment, that's a Hail Mary." Mr. Cole stood. "Your Honor, if I may present our final evidence?" "Proceed." What unfolded over the next hour was the complete unraveling of Gerald's life. Mr. Cole presented Nicole's findings about the business fraud. Gerald's investors testified, shocked and angry to learn they'd been deceived. The IRS had already opened an investigation based on the questionable expense reports. Mr. Patterson presented himself as a stable financial provider, Mr. Cole said. But his stability was built on fraud, hidden accounts, and illegal business practices. The man who claimed his wife couldn't provide for their son was himself on the verge of financial and legal collapse. Mrs. Murphy, the supervised visitation supervisor, testified about Gerald's behavior during visits with Caleb. The child shows clear signs of anxiety around his father. Mr. Patterson makes no effort to engage with his son appropriately. Instead, every visit becomes about making the child believe his mother is at fault. This is textbook parental alienation. Ms. Rodriguez testified about Caleb's behavior at school. Before the separation, Caleb was anxious, sometimes having stomachaches before his father picked him up. Since living primarily with his mother, he's thrived. He's happier, more confident, more engaged in class. Even Mr. Thompson, my former boss, testified again, this time more honestly. I was manipulated by Mr. Patterson. He convinced me his wife was unstable through repeated calls, fake evidence, and threats about liability. I realize now I fired one of my best employees based on lies. If Mrs. Patterson ever wants to return to our firm, I'd hire her back immediately. She won't, I whispered to Mr. Cole. I have a better job now. He smiled. Then came Gerald's business partner, Richard Sterling. Wait, I can't use Sterling. Let me revise. Then came Gerald's business partner, Richard Moore. Your Honor, I've worked with Gerald Patterson for 8 years. I thought I knew him. But these revelations about hidden accounts, fraud, manipulation, I had no idea. Our other partners and I are dissolving our partnership with him. We can't be associated with this level of deceit. Gerald's face was ashen. He was losing everything, his family, his business, his reputation. Hartwick made a last desperate attempt. Your Honor, my client is facing consequences for his actions. Isn't that enough? Does he also have to lose his son? He's not losing his son because of consequences, Judge Henderson said sharply. He's losing custody because he's demonstrated a profound inability to put his child's needs above his own ego. He coached his son to lie. He tried to manipulate a 7-year-old into betraying his mother. That's not a parent, that's a tyrant. The judge looked at Caleb, who sat in the front row holding my hand. Young man, would you like to say anything? Caleb stood up, small but steady. I just want to live with my mom. She takes care of me. She's always there. Dad only cares about winning. That's not what dads are supposed to do. Thank you, son. You're a remarkably brave young man. Then Judge Henderson delivered his ruling. In the matter of Patterson versus Patterson, I find the following. Mr. Gerald Patterson engaged in systematic financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and fraud against his former spouse. He deliberately sabotaged her career, isolated her socially, hid marital assets, and attempted to manipulate these proceedings through lies and coercion. Regarding custody, Mrs. Naomi Patterson is granted full legal and physical custody of the minor child, Caleb Patterson. Mr. Gerald Patterson will have supervised visitation 1 weekend per month, contingent on completion of parenting classes and anger management programs, subject to review in 6 months. Regarding assets, all hidden accounts and assets will be divided equitably, with a 60-40 split favoring Mrs. Patterson due to Mr. Patterson's fraudulent concealment. The marital home goes to Mrs. Patterson. Mr. Patterson will pay child support in the amount of $2,500 per month and will cover all educational and medical expenses for the child. Additionally, Mr. Patterson will pay Mrs. Patterson's legal fees in full, as well as $50,000 in compensatory damages for the deliberate destruction of her career and earning potential. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges related to fraud and perjury. The courtroom erupted. Journalists scribbled furiously. Gerald's former business partners looked grim, and I felt Caleb's hand squeeze mine tight. We won, Mom, he whispered. We won, baby. Hartwick tried to object, to argue for appeal, but Judge Henderson silenced her. Counsel, your client lied to this court repeatedly. He attempted to manipulate a child into committing perjury. He engaged in fraud. You're lucky I'm not holding you accountable for bringing these false claims. If you know what's good for you, you'll advise your client to accept this ruling and focus on the criminal charges he's about to face. Gerald stood, his face twisted with rage. This is ridiculous. You're destroying my life over a bitter woman's lies. Sit down, Mr. Patterson, or I'll hold you in contempt. She turned my son against me. She's vindictive and... Bailiff, remove Mr. Patterson from the courtroom. As the bailiff approached, Gerald lunged toward me. You did this. You destroyed everything. The bailiff caught him, wrestling him back. Caleb buried his face in my side and I held him tight. Mr. Cole stepped between us and Gerald, his old frame surprisingly solid. Don't even think about it, Mr. Cole said quietly. Gerald was escorted out, still shouting accusations. The courtroom slowly settled. Judge Henderson looked at me with something like compassion. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry you had to endure this. The system should have protected you sooner. I hope you and your son find peace now. Thank you, Your Honor. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to ask questions, but Mr. Cole waved them off. My client has no statement at this time except that she's grateful for justice and looks forward to rebuilding her life with her son. In the parking lot, away from the cameras, Mr. Cole shook my hand. You did it. You stood up to a bully and won. We did it. I couldn't have done this without you. That boy of yours did most of the work. He's going to be something special when he grows up. Caleb beamed at the praise. In the car driving home, Caleb was quiet. Finally, he said, "Mom, is Dad going to jail?" "Maybe. He did some illegal things. But that's not our concern anymore. We're going to focus on us, on being happy." "I'm already happy," Caleb said. "Now that it's over." But it wasn't quite over. There was still rebuilding to do, healing to be done. The court victory was just the beginning. That evening, my phone buzzed with messages. Old friends congratulating me. Colleagues from my old firm apologizing and offering references. Rebecca texting, "Celebration dinner tomorrow, my treat." But the most surprising message came from Vanessa. "I'm glad you won. Gerald showed his true self to me too. I'm sorry for my part in your pain. I hope someday you can forgive me." I deleted the message without responding. Forgiveness might come someday, but not today. Today was for celebrating, for holding my son close, for feeling safe for the first time in months. We ordered pizza and watched Caleb's favorite movie. He fell asleep on the couch halfway through, his head on my shoulder. I looked down at his peaceful face and felt overwhelming gratitude. We'd survived. More than that, we'd won. And tomorrow we'd start building our new life. The weeks following the court decision felt surreal, like waking up from a nightmare and slowly realizing you were safe. The first morning I woke up without immediately feeling dread, I actually cried with relief. The settlement money came through faster than I expected. Suddenly, my bank account had numbers I hadn't seen in a year. Not wealth, but security. The ability to breathe without panic. To buy groceries without calculating every item. To tell Caleb yes, when he asked for new sneakers instead of making his old ones last another month. I paid Mr. Cole first, even though Judge Henderson had ordered Gerald to cover the legal fees. Mr. Cole tried to refuse. The court ordered him to pay Naomi. "Save your money. Gerald might appeal or find some way to delay. I want to pay you now while I can. You saved our lives." He accepted with grace. "What will you do now?" "Live. Actually live, not just survive." Rebecca made good on her promise of a celebration dinner. She took me to a nice restaurant downtown, the kind of place I hadn't been able to afford in months. Over pasta and wine, she laid out her offer. "I want you as full partner in the firm. Equal stake, equal say in decisions. Your client list has grown faster than anyone else's. You're talented, Naomi. I want to build something with you. Rebecca, I don't have capital to invest in a partnership. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for your skills, your dedication, your vision. We'll work out the details, but I want this to be your company too." I couldn't speak for a moment. 6 months ago, I'd been jobless and desperate. Now someone wanted to make me a business partner. Why? Because you're good at what you do. Because you've proven you can handle adversity. Because I believe in supporting women who've been knocked down. And honestly, because I like you. You're real. No pretense, no ego. That's rare in this business. We shook hands on it, and I felt like I was finally reclaiming pieces of myself Gerald had stolen. At home, Caleb thrived. His teacher sent regular updates. "Caleb is excelling in every subject. His confidence has grown tremendously. He's becoming a leader in the classroom." He made new friends, kids from the support group's children's program who understood what divorce was like. His best friend Timothy remained constant, and Timothy's parents became friends of mine, good people who'd never believed Gerald's lies about me. Gerald's supervised visitation happened once a month as ordered. Mrs. Murphy's reports showed little improvement. Mr. Patterson remains focused on defending himself rather than connecting with his son. Caleb tolerates the visits but shows no enthusiasm for them. After the third visit, Caleb asked, "Do I have to keep seeing Dad?" "The judge said you do, baby. But only once a month, and Mrs. Murphy is always there. He just talks about how unfair everything is. He never asks about school or my friends. He doesn't care about me." "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I wish your dad was different." "It's okay. I have you. That's enough." But it broke my heart that my 7-year-old had to be so philosophical about his father's rejection. The criminal investigation into Gerald's business dealings moved forward. The district attorney's office contacted me for an interview. I told them everything I knew, showed them the evidence we'd used in court. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Torres, was thorough and professional. "Mrs. Patterson, your ex-husband is looking at multiple charges: fraud, tax evasion, perjury. If convicted, he could face significant prison time." "I don't want revenge," I said honestly. "I just want him to leave us alone." "I understand. But these charges aren't about revenge. They're about accountability. He hurt a lot of people. You, his business partners, his investors, the court system. He needs to face consequences. Gerald's business collapsed completely. His partners dissolved the company and started fresh without him. His investors sued him. His reputation in the industry was destroyed. I heard through Rebecca's connections that he was struggling to find work, that he'd moved to a small apartment, that Vanessa had left him and filed for full custody of their baby. Part of me felt vindicated. He tried to leave me with nothing and karma had returned the favor. But mostly I just felt tired of the whole situation. I wanted to move on, to stop having Gerald Patterson be the center of my story. 3 months after the court decision, something unexpected happened. A man from the support group, someone I'd noticed but never really talked to, approached me after a meeting. Naomi? I'm James. I've been coming to the group for a few months and I just wanted to say, I think you're remarkable. I blinked, surprised. Thank you. Sorry that was awkward. I'm not great at this. What I mean is, I've watched you rebuild your life with such grace. You're strong without being bitter. That's inspiring. James was tall, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He worked as a high school teacher and was divorced with a teenage daughter. His ex-wife had left him for someone else, and they'd managed an amicable separation. I'd like to take you for coffee sometime, he said. No pressure. Just coffee. And conversation. I hesitated. I wasn't ready for romance. My heart was still healing. But coffee and conversation sounded nice. Okay, I said. Coffee. We met the following Saturday at a small cafe downtown. Caleb came with me. I wasn't ready to leave him with a sitter for a date, and James didn't mind. This is my son Caleb, I introduced them. Hey Caleb. I'm James. Your mom told me you like soccer? Caleb lit up. I play midfielder. Do you like soccer? I coached the high school team actually. They talked about soccer for 20 minutes while I sipped my coffee and watched. James was natural with Caleb, engaging him without being condescending. He didn't try too hard, didn't force it. Just treated him like a person worth listening to. After Caleb went to play at the cafe's kids area, James turned to me. He's a great kid. You've done an amazing job with him. Thank you. It hasn't been easy. The best things never are. We talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. He didn't press me about Gerald or the divorce. We discussed books, movies, his daughter, my new business partnership, his teaching job, my marketing campaigns. It was easy, comfortable, normal. At the end he walked us to our car. I'd like to do this again. If you would. I'd like that too. Driving home, Caleb asked, Is James your boyfriend now? No, baby. He's just a friend. I'm not ready for a boyfriend. That's okay. But I like him. He's nice. Not like Dad. No, sweetheart. Not like Dad. But I wasn't ready to jump into anything. I focused on work, on Caleb, on healing. James remained a friend, someone I talked to at group meetings, occasionally met for coffee. He didn't push for more and I appreciated that. My parents finally visited, horrified when they learned what Gerald had done. Why didn't you tell us? My mother demanded. Gerald told you I was fine and just needed space. I didn't want to burden you. You're our daughter. You're never a burden. They stayed for a week, helping with Caleb, cooking meals, being supportive in all the ways I'd needed but been too proud to ask for. When they left, my mother hugged me tight. You're the strongest woman I know, Naomi. Stronger than me, that's for sure. I had good role models, Mom. The holidays approached and I dreaded them. Last year's Christmas had been tense but intact. This year would be our first as a broken family. But Caleb helped me decorate the tree and we made new traditions. Pancakes for breakfast on Christmas morning. Movie marathon in pajamas. Just the two of us making it work. Gerald sent a present for Caleb, an expensive gaming system that violated the court's order about gifts without prior approval. I returned it. Why can't I keep it? Caleb asked. Because Dad's trying to buy your love instead of earning it. That's not how this works. I didn't want it anyway, Caleb said. I'd rather have the Lego set you got me. On Christmas evening, James called. Just wanted to wish you and Caleb Merry Christmas. I hope you're both doing well. We are. Thank you. Merry Christmas, James. My daughter wants to meet you. She says anyone who survived what you did must be pretty cool. I'm not cool. I'm just stubborn. Sometimes that's the same thing. As the year ended, I reflected on how much had changed. 12 months ago, I'd been married, employed, ignorant of the betrayal brewing in my own home. Now I was divorced, a business partner, stronger and more independent than I'd ever been. The pain of Gerald's betrayal still existed, but it had shifted from an open wound to a scar. something I'd carry but that no longer defined me. And as I tucked Caleb into bed on New Year's Eve, listening to fireworks outside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Mom? Caleb murmured sleepily. This was a good year. How do you figure that, baby? We were sad at the beginning, but we won. We're happy now. That makes it good. I kissed his forehead. You're right. It was a good year. And next year will be even better. Promise. Promise. And this time I believed it. Spring arrived with unexpected warmth, washing away the last traces of a difficult winter. 6 months had passed since the court ruling, and life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. I woke up each morning without dread, went to work feeling valued, came home to my son's laughter. Simple things that once felt impossible. The partnership with Rebecca was thriving. We'd landed 3 major clients and hired 2 new associates. Our little consultancy was growing into something substantial. I'd found my professional confidence again, that thing Gerald had tried so hard to destroy. You're a natural leader, Rebecca told me during a strategy meeting. The associates look up to you. The clients trust you. You should consider speaking at the Women in Business conference next month. Public speaking terrifies me. Everything terrifies you until you do it. Then it's just another thing you conquered. She had a point. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined standing in court defending myself. Now I'd done that and more. What was a business conference compared to that? Caleb had shot up 2 inches and lost another tooth. He was thriving in school, his report card full of glowing comments. Ms. Rodriguez called me in for a parent-teacher conference that turned out to be entirely positive. Caleb is exceptional, she said. Not just academically, though his grades are excellent. It's his emotional intelligence. He helps other kids who are struggling. When Timothy's grandmother died, Caleb sat with him at lunch every day for a week, just being there. That's remarkable empathy for an 8-year-old. He's been through a lot. Maybe it made him more aware of other people's pain. That's a gift. Some children who experience trauma become self-focused. Caleb became more compassionate. You've raised an extraordinary boy, Mrs. Patterson. I left that conference with tears in my eyes. All the nights I'd worried I was failing him, that the divorce had damaged him irreparably, and here was evidence he was not just okay but thriving. Gerald's supervised visits had been reduced to once every 2 months. The reports showed he'd barely tried to improve his relationship with Caleb. Mrs. Murphy's latest assessment was blunt. Mr. Patterson views visitation as an obligation rather than an opportunity. He shows minimal engagement with his son and spends most of each session on his phone or complaining about his circumstances. I recommend termination of visitation pending significant demonstrated change. Caleb had stopped asking about his father. When visits happened, he tolerated them with resigned patience, then came home and forgot about them. It was sad but also healthy. He wasn't pining for a father who couldn't be what he needed. The criminal case against Gerald had concluded with a plea deal. He'd pled guilty to fraud and tax evasion, receiving 2 years probation, a massive fine, and court-ordered therapy. No jail time, which disappointed me at first, but the prosecutor explained. Prison would have cost taxpayers money. This way he pays back what he owes and he has to get psychological help. It's actually better for everyone involved. Gerald had disappeared from the social scene. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved 2 hours away, working some low-level job far beneath his former position. Vanessa had full custody of their baby and wanted nothing to do with him. He'd lost everything he'd tried to steal from me. How do you feel about that? Helen asked during a support group session. About Gerald losing everything? Mostly I don't feel anything, I admitted. It's like he's someone I used to know, not someone who matters to my present. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. That's called healing. My friendship with James had deepened slowly over the months. We talked regularly, met for coffee weekly, included our kids in group activities. His daughter Sarah was 16 and remarkably mature. She and Caleb had bonded despite the age difference. She treated him like a little brother and he adored her. One evening, after a group pizza dinner with both kids, James walked me to my car. Naomi, I know you've been focused on healing and rebuilding. I respect that. But I want you to know. I care about you. More than as just a friend. My heart raced. James? I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. I looked at this kind, patient man who'd never pushed, never demanded, never made me feel like I owed him anything. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. In the car, Caleb asked, Are you and James going to get married? What? No. We're just friends. But he likes you. And you smile different when you talk to him. Do I? Yeah. Like you're happy but nervous. That's how people look in movies when they like someone. I laughed despite myself. When did you become an expert on romance? I pay attention, Mom. That night, lying in bed, I thought about James. About the possibility of letting someone new into my life. The idea terrified me. Gerald had destroyed my ability to trust easily. But James was different. He'd never tried to control me, never belittled me, never made me doubt myself. Maybe I was ready. Maybe not for marriage or even a serious relationship, but for the possibility of something good. The women's business conference came and I gave my speech. I talked about rebuilding after professional sabotage, about finding allies, about trusting yourself when everyone else doubts you. The audience of 200 women gave me a standing ovation. Afterward, women approached me with their own stories. Careers destroyed by jealous colleagues. Businesses stolen by partners. Dreams dismissed by people who should have supported them. I listened to each one, offered what advice I could, exchanged contact information. You've become a role model, Rebecca said, beaming. Our firm's profile has doubled since that speech. Everyone wants to work with a woman who fought back and won. I just told my story. That's what role models do. They show others it's possible to survive. On Caleb's 8th birthday, we had a big party with his whole class. Timothy's parents helped me organize it, and James and Sarah came too. Watching my son laugh and play, surrounded by friends who loved him, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Make a wish, birthday boy, I said as he blew out the candles. Later I asked what he'd wished for. You're not supposed to tell, Mom. It won't come true. You're right. Sorry. But he whispered it to me anyway. I wished we'd always be this happy. Me too, baby. Me too. A week after Caleb's birthday, James asked me to dinner. Just the two of us, no kids. A real date, he clarified. If you're ready. I took a deep breath. Okay. Yes. A real date. We went to a quiet Italian restaurant. James wore a suit that made him look distinguished. I wore my favorite dress, the one that made me feel like myself. We talked and laughed, and when he took my hand across the table, I didn't pull away. I'm scared, I admitted, of trusting someone again, of being that vulnerable. I'm scared too. My ex-wife broke my heart. But Naomi, you're worth the risk. And I promise, I'll never be like Gerald. I'll never hurt you deliberately. I'll never try to control or diminish you. How can you promise that? Because I've seen what you're capable of. Why would I want to diminish something so incredible? We took things slow. Date nights every couple of weeks. Family dinners with the kids. Gradually building something real and healthy. No rush, no pressure, just two people learning to trust again. 3 months into dating, Sarah and Caleb conspired to set us up on a surprise picnic. They'd planned everything, packed the food, chosen a beautiful park. James and I played along, pretending we didn't know it was a setup. They're not subtle, James laughed as we watched the kids play on the swings. No, but they're sweet. Caleb really likes you. And Sarah. Sarah adores you. She told me you're the strongest woman she's ever met. Coming from a 16-year-old, that's high praise. I'm not that strong. I just did what I had to do. That's exactly what strength is. Not being fearless but being afraid and doing it anyway. As summer arrived, I realized I'd made it through a full year since the divorce. A year of rebuilding, healing, growing. I'd started a business partnership, made real friends, found genuine peace. And maybe, just maybe, I'd found love again, the healthy kind that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. Gerald had tried to break me. Instead, he'd freed me to become someone stronger. Someone I actually liked being. The universe had a funny way of working things out. 1 year after Judge Henderson's ruling, I stood in my new office. A real office with my name on the door. Naomi Patterson, partner. Rebecca and I had just signed the lease on a larger space for our growing firm. 8 employees now with plans to hire more. We'd become one of the most sought-after marketing consultancies in the city. Remember when you walked into my office last year, terrified I was going to fire you? Rebecca said, smiling as she hung photos on the wall. I remember thinking I'd never work again. That Gerald had destroyed me permanently. Look at you now. Client waiting list, industry awards, speaking invitations. You're thriving. Thriving. Such a simple word for something that had felt impossible. But it was true. I'd stopped just surviving and started actually living again. Caleb burst into the office after school, backpack bouncing. Mom, guess what? I got picked for the accelerated math program. Ms. Rodriguez says I'm one of the top students in the whole grade. I swept him into a hug. That's amazing, baby. I'm so proud of you. James followed him in, carrying a congratulations balloon and grinning. Thought we should celebrate. Sarah's making dinner at my place tonight. Hope that's okay. That's perfect. Over the past months, James had become a steady, wonderful presence in our lives. He'd met my parents who adored him. Caleb looked up to him. And I'd fallen in love with him, slowly and carefully but completely. He didn't try to replace Gerald or be Caleb's father. He was just James, kind, patient, supportive. He celebrated my successes without feeling threatened. He encouraged my independence rather than trying to control it. He loved me without needing to own me. Last week, he'd asked me to move in with him and Sarah. No rush, he'd said. I know it's a big step, but I love you, Naomi. I love Caleb. I want us to be a family. I hadn't answered yet. The idea of combining households, of trusting someone that much again, it terrified me. But it also felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. That evening at James's house, we had a family dinner. Sarah had made lasagna, Caleb helped with garlic bread, and James mixed salad. It was chaotic and warm and loud, full of laughter and teasing and love. I have an announcement, Sarah said, raising her water glass. I got accepted to State University. Full scholarship. We erupted in cheers. James had tears in his eyes, so proud of his daughter. I squeezed his hand under the table and he squeezed back. After dinner, James and I walked in his garden while the kids cleaned up. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving me a second chance at this. A family at love. After my divorce, I thought I'd just be alone with Sarah. I never imagined. Finding someone broken and complicated? I teased. Finding someone strong and remarkable. Naomi, I meant what I said about moving in together. But I want you to know, there's no pressure. I'll wait as long as you need. Or if you're not ready for that step, we can keep things as they are. I just want you in my life. I looked at this man who'd waited patiently for me to heal, who'd never pushed or demanded or tried to control, who'd shown me what real love looked like, the kind that makes you stronger, not smaller. Ask me again in a month, I said. I think I might be ready. I just need a little more time to be sure. A month? I can do that. News reached me through Rebecca that Gerald was engaged again. Another woman, someone he'd apparently met at his court-ordered therapy sessions. I felt nothing hearing it, no jealousy, no anger, just distant curiosity about someone who used to be in my life. Apparently he's working as a regional manager at a sales company, Rebecca reported. Nothing like his old position, but it's something. His fiancée has 3 kids from a previous marriage. I hope he treats them better than he treated Caleb, I said and meant it. I didn't wish Gerald happiness exactly, but I didn't wish him misery either. I just wished him irrelevant to my life. Vanessa had also reached out again, this time through a mutual acquaintance. She'd had her baby, a girl, and was raising her alone. Gerald had no involvement in his daughter's life, had signed away his parental rights rather than pay child support. She wanted you to know she's in therapy and working on herself, the mutual friend told me. She wanted to apologize again. Tell her I hope she and her daughter are well. That's all I can offer. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. But it was release. Letting go of the anger, the hurt, the need for her to suffer. She'd made terrible choices, but she was also a mother now, trying to do better. That was enough. Gerald's supervised visits with Caleb had officially ended after Mrs. Murphy's recommendation. Caleb could request contact when he was older if he wanted, but for now there was none. My son seemed relieved more than sad. Do you miss him? I asked once. Sometimes I miss the dad I thought I had, Caleb said thoughtfully. But I don't think that dad ever really existed. So mostly I just feel okay. That level of insight from an 8-year-old amazed me. He'd been through so much, yet he remained kind, empathetic, joyful. Whatever I'd done right as a parent had stuck despite everything. The support group remained important to both of us. Caleb had started a kids group for children of divorce, with Helen's encouragement. He helped younger kids process their feelings, shared his story, offered hope. Watching him support others the way he'd once needed support filled me with pride. Your son is going to change lives, Helen told me after one session. He's already changing lives. He changed mine, I said simply. A month later, James asked again about moving in. We were at the park watching Caleb and Sarah play soccer, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. Have you thought about my question? I took a deep breath. Yes. And my answer is yes. Let's do this. Let's be a family. His face lit up. Really? You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm also sure. You've shown me what real partnership looks like. What real love looks like. And I want that. With you. He kissed me there in the park, and somewhere nearby I heard Caleb cheer. When we pulled apart, both kids were grinning at us. Finally, Sarah said. We've been waiting forever. It's been 6 months, I laughed. That's forever when you're waiting for something good. The move happened gradually over the summer. We combined households carefully, making sure both kids felt heard and included. Caleb got his own room, painted the blue he wanted. Sarah helped me organize the kitchen. James and I navigated the small conflicts that come with merging lives. Who loads the dishwasher, how, what time constitutes too late for noise, whose turn it is to handle dinner. But mostly it was easy. Natural. Right. My parents visited and fell in love with James and Sarah immediately. This is what you deserve, my mother said, hugging me tight. Someone who treats you like you're precious. I am precious, I said, believing it for the first time in years. On the first anniversary of living together, James proposed. Nothing fancy, just the four of us at dinner when he suddenly got down on one knee. Naomi, you've taught me what courage looks like. What strength looks like. What love looks like when it's real and healthy and right. Will you marry me? Caleb bounced in his seat. Say yes, Mom. Say yes. I looked at this man who'd waited for me to heal, who'd shown me patience and kindness and respect, who'd never tried to change me or control me, who loved me exactly as I was. Yes, I said through happy tears. Yes. The wedding was small and perfect. Just family and close friends in Rebecca's garden. Caleb was my best man, Sarah was James's best woman. We wrote our own vows, promising partnership and respect and support. I promised to never make you smaller to make myself feel bigger, James said. I promise to celebrate your victories and support you through challenges. I promise to love you for exactly who you are. I promise to trust you with my heart, I said. I promise to build a life with you built on honesty and respect. I promise to love you for exactly who you are. When we kissed, Caleb and Sarah cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Mr. Cole approached me. He was 80 now but still sharp. Naomi, my dear. You've come so far from that terrified woman in the courtroom. You saved my life, Mr. Cole. No. Your son saved your life. I just gave you the tools to fight. You did the actual fighting. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for reminding an old lawyer why the law matters. For showing me that justice can still prevail. I danced with my new husband, with my son, with my stepdaughter. I laughed with friends who'd supported me through everything. I celebrated this new chapter with people who genuinely loved me. Gerald wasn't there. He wasn't in my thoughts. He was finally, truly irrelevant to my happiness. 2 years after the divorce, I'd rebuilt my entire life. New career, new family, new understanding of my own strength. The woman Gerald had tried to destroy had risen stronger than ever. That evening, putting Caleb to bed in our new home, he said, Mom, are you happy? So happy, baby. Are you? Yeah. This is way better than before. Even better than when you and Dad were together, because that wasn't real happy. This is real. Yes, it is. Real happy is the best kind. I'm glad I was your lawyer, he said sleepily, even though I was too little to really be one. You were the best lawyer anyone could ask for. You saved us. We saved each other, Mom. He was right. We had saved each other. A mother and son against the world, fighting for justice and finding it. Then building something beautiful from the ashes. I walked downstairs to where James was reading in the living room. Sarah had gone to bed, exhausted from dancing. The house was quiet and peaceful and full of love. Hey, wife, James said, grinning. Hey, husband. Happy. Incredibly. He pulled me onto the couch beside him and we sat in comfortable silence. Outside, crickets sang. Inside, my heart finally felt at peace. Gerald had tried to write my ending. He'd wanted me broken, desperate, destroyed. Instead, I'd written my own ending. One where I was strong, successful, loved, and happy. Sweet victory tasted better than I'd ever imagined.